Okay, this is the 44 Magnum press I have up for sale, and we'll start from up high. It has a guide rod tube or a follower tube for the primers. That goes right inside the Dillon primer feed tube. Now those of course are readily available from Dillon. And if you go down here, you see it simply hooks to the press with one Allen headed set screw. The original primer feeds were nothing but trouble. This feeds flawlessly. I've never had a problem with them. Unless once in a great while you'll get a primer in there that's bent, but that's a rare thing. Alright, secondly, one of the things I've done to this press is over here, the original carousel primer tube feed has been removed. It's a simple one set screw here. This center pin goes through and holds everything in place, and this lifts out, and the original carousel would go back on. Now, I really don't know why anybody would want to do that, but this works off of a Dillon case feeder, and of course if you don't want to spend the money for a Dillon case feeder, I'll show you in a minute what works really well. So anyway, there's one single tube that replaced the Carousel of 5 tubes. So that is modification number 2. Now, the only other, I've done 2 other things to the press, and let me move the camera so I can zoom in for you. Now normally your press will not have this Allen headed cap screw, but what happens if you get some really, let's say some military cases and mixed in with standard population cases, they can be tremendously different in wall thickness and etc. So when you pull this press handle down, okay, the only thing that stopped it was in the back. The actual upper ram hit the bottom ram. Okay, now if you can see, I don't know if you can see it, but the front of the movable upper ram is hitting on top this cap screw. And what I do is I always preload it a little bit, meaning that this cap screw is set up 3 or 4 thousandths of an inch. So when you come down, it always is in the same position. You'll see that the handle's moving a little bit. That's a little bit of preload on that whole die assembly. So what this does in reality is gives you more uniform seating, crimping, and etc. So your cartridge links are always closer. Now, the other thing I do is that I keep this bullet seatings area about 1/4 inch high. So when you drop your lead bullet in and pull it down, all it does is start it for you straight in the case mouth. Now when you index it to the next position, this die is not a standard RCBS die, but it's a seating and crimp die. So you simply take an empty case, put it under there, and that's been expanded, and you cinch your crimp. So you check for a little bit of rollover if you want a crimp. All right. Also, then you take another one when you're running a live round through. When it gets to this station, you keep moving this down in the top center part until you get your seating depth. So this top center part is your seating depth, and of course this is the amount of crimp you want to put on. So those are the 3 modifications or so. and that makes this press run just as smooth as silk. Now I'm going to swing around to a different press here and show you what you can do with this if you don't want to expend a lot of money on a case feeder. And I'm telling you, it works just as well as anything in the world. Okay, this is something that my cousin and I come up with probably 35 years ago. But this is, this simply pulls off the top. These are the regular RCBS feeding tubes, and this is a Melmeline bowl, and nothing fancy, but I will say that they are terrible to work with, the material. When you try to drill a hole, it wants to crack, chip, break, and etc. So all I did was took a 1/2 inch hard copper coupling and split it halfway with a hacksaw and bent the tabs out. Bored a hole in the bowl, and you simply set. Now I've made these out of stainless steel bowl also, but they're very deep and you have a tendency to put way too many cases in them. So anyway, all you do is set that on top your the tube that feeds your feeder, and take not a big handful, but you don't need to throw a bunch in at a time. But when you throw them in, the base is always heavier, of course, than the mouth, and you just bump it, and you see them falling down, and that's what it does. 100% perfect feed rate, base down, unless you screw up and throw a loaded cartridge in there, and of course then the lead is going to be heavier than the base. So that's a very easy case feeder, and like I said, it simply goes right on the top of this. You would have to take this heat shrink off because that's for the Dillon, but that's it. You throw that on and you're off and running. So that's about all I can tell you about this press. Thank you. Okay, we've loaded up the feeder tube. Now I didn't put the Dillon case feeder on because it gets in the way of the camera. We've loaded that. Make sure your powder is full, because when you drop 11 grains of Unique each throw, you eat up powder rather rapidly out of these little dandy feeders. Okay, we've made sure that our primer feed tube is full. So here we go. It's a very nice, easy operation. All you have to do is simply drop the bullet in, and I guess, you know, I never get in a hurry on these things. Of course, you can run a lot faster, but I don't. And I always say in all the videos I'm working on these green machines, I stop with the press handle down. All dies are in place. They're covering up empty shells, ones that have powder in them, ones that have bullets partially seated, and the fully loaded bullet. But anyway, in just a couple minutes there's some, you know, nicely loaded bullets. So thanks for watching, and thanks for putting up with my shaky videos. Alright, what I've done now, this is the last little part of this video, I've added the my first rendition of a case feeder, which is the same bowl I showed you. I pulled the short tube out of the metal bracket down here, and when this is shipped, this will be removed. And this here I call a knocker. It connects way down low on the machine, and as you operate the lever, this simply swings back and forth, and it bumps this and keeps the cases feeding. So what I'm going to do now is try to get a picture of some loading going on. Well, I've got to get back so far. I'm not sure you're going to be able to see anything except maybe the back side of my bald head. So anyway, here we go. Okay, now you can maybe see the cases are right here. So just throw 4 or 5 or 6 back in there. And alright, this is, I promise you, the last portion of the video. I'm still trying to get to the point where you can see everything and not having much luck. Let me move this camera back a little further. Alright, I'm back about 6 or 8 feet away from this thing, and that's so I can get the top of the case feeder, the bullet knocker, the case knocker there, and everything. But anyway, here we go. This is how the loading process goes. And as you see, this arm knocks the case feeder up here. I usually take 4 or 5 bullets out of the bullet tray. When I run out of those, I throw some more cartridges up here. And this kind of keeps the rhythm going. But as you can tell, you can load quite a few rounds in an hour. This press runs flawlessly, so I don't think anybody is going to have any trouble with it. However, with like any progressive press,